It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Well, good morning, America. Thanks for joining with us on our third segment. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael. I am your host. In this third segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the problem that we have that our government's not talking to us about, and yet is telling us this is the reason, the alleged reason, that they are violating all of our First and Second and Fourth Amendment rights, Fifth Amendment rights, Eighth Amendment rights. I mean, the list just goes on. That is to keep us safe, right? But there's a story on the Blaze this morning. It's on our Facebook page. It's on our website. I'll link it to this video in the comment section. Iran is aggressively recruiting an invisible army of Latin American converts to infiltrate the U.S. through the soft belly of our southern border. And the reason that that's disturbing is because I've been saying this for a long, long time. The porosity of our border is specifically allowed to happen for a reason. We could seal our border. We've sealed the border of North Korea east to west, ocean to ocean. And we've kept it that way so that not even a gnat can escape through for 60 years. How is it we can keep that border closed and not our own? For those people out there who say it's impossible, it's too big, it's too broad an area, it's too large, it's too wide, I'm saying where there's a will, there's a way. And the truth is that there is no will here. And I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, it's only my opinion, the real reason why these borders aren't shut. And it comes down to this. The truth is that the border is porous to allow dangerous terroristic elements to cross over. The reason for that is because, much to the chagrin of the conspiracy theorists, I think a lot of the things that happen in this country are not necessarily false flags. I don't know whether they are or they're not, and I'm not, but they don't need to false flag. If you allow the true perpetrator in, and then you ignore him while he's here, and you don't follow him, or you know he's going to do something, but you don't take action, you're guilty of conspiracy by omission of action. But what it does do is it allows an attack to occur after, enough calculation has been done to determine, exactly how much collateral damage will there be, what can we use this for when it happens, how much hay can we make out of it? I mean, the old adage, which was given to us by this administration, of never let a perfectly good crisis go to waste. All you got to do is just let them in, and then let them do their thing. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to plot some kind of a secret military false flag project. You don't have to plot your own terrorist attacks. All you got to do is leave the border wide open. And if there's one thing that we can point to in the past 30 years that is so illogical, it's like trying to explain how life would be like without gravity. It's the porosity of our border. I mean, explain it to me. Give me one legitimate, valid reason. I mean, I know the arguments are laden with emotion, but I posit that emotion has been ginned up or built up over time. I mean, when I was a kid, people didn't think kindly of illegal immigration. Why is it suddenly now, with the leftist progressivist mentality, that everybody pushes this we shouldn't have borders mentality? I'm going to tell you why. You've been brainwashed into thinking by our media, by our own government, by the progressives, that it's acceptable, advisable, and desirous to have a wide open border. What you don't know is that that's like the guy who says to you, constantly comes over to your house every night and says, we live in such a safe neighborhood, there's no reason to ever lock your doors. We have the nicest neighborhood. This is the most wonderful neighborhood. You know what? We have not had a robbery in this neighborhood in 50 years. I know you're new here, and we're glad you got here. You know, you're welcome to this neighborhood because it's the nicest, and it's the best, and it's the safest in town. All of us watch out for each other's homes, and we never have a problem. And so you know, after hearing the same lie over and over and over and over and over again, begin to believe. And one day you're racing out to get to work and you think, I forgot to lock the door. Heck, I'm late. And the neighbor said this is a perfectly safe neighborhood. Only to find out that the minute you're out of sight, your neighbor runs over and twists the knob to check. You see, once we allow our borders to be this porous, and we allow the elements in, the sleeper cells, that we know are coming in, I mean, DHS admits it. They say they can't stop it. But I don't believe it. And the reason they don't stop it is because they want it. Because it serves a purpose. It gives them a plausible excuse to continue this tirade, this march onward of enslaving the American people by surveillance, by the security lockdowns, by the monitoring, the DNA, the scanning, the retinal, all of the photographs, the facial recognition, the mandates of a driver's license, a national ID card. See, government, really, it can only do one thing. Government is force. It's nothing else. It can be nothing else. And a government who is not leashed begins to use that force more and more and more. And once it reaches a certain threshold or critical mass, it begins to turn that power in on itself to retain and control and grow its own powering strength, which enables it to grow more. And the more it grows, the more it applies. And the more it applies, the more it grows. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the goal here is to allow these borders to remain porous and wide open, to allow a dangerous element in here that will do what the government, one, doesn't want to have to do, is not unwilling to do, but it doesn't want to have to do because, God, if word ever gets out, right? So we don't have to. All we got to do is let them pour over the border, and they'll do it for us. And then when they do, we get to use the power to lock down and close the steely fist of tyranny around the throats and the necks of the American people. You want proof? Think 9/11. I don't know where you stand on whether or not 9/11 was an inside job or an outside job or a partly inside and outside job. But we do know, and enough information has come out, that says that all along they knew these guys were here. They knew who they were. They knew they were Islamic extremists. They knew they were terrorists. They knew they were training to fly planes. They'd been given lots of warning that planes were going to be used well in advance, years in advance. They knew these guys were here without visas, and nobody did a thing. Now, I got to tell you, I've heard the argument, oh, it was really not planes, it was missiles and so forth. Well, I've seen enough footage that I don't think, you can fake a plane and make it look like a missile or something. Maybe there was a missile shot out of the nose. I don't know. But I do know this. I have zero doubt in my mind that there were people inside of our government who knew that 9/11 was going to happen and allowed it to occur. Because it gave them plausible deniability. And the collateral damage was acceptable. And see, once we're viewed as collateral, once we're viewed as the peasantry, all bets are off. Everything's lost. There is no more point in trying to live under a rule of law because tyranny is now in control. The Patriot Act was assembled and literally voted in a matter of days. And there ain't no way on God's green earth that they put that together that fast. If you believe that these congressmen and senators, in the depth of their astonishment, surprise, urgent concern, had the forethought, the foresight, and the intelligence to sit down and write out the Patriot Act in 48 hours, you're an extraordinarily gullible person. So, was the Patriot Act sitting there waiting for insertion into the public dialogue? Which, by the way, got no dialogue. They literally put it up and that night voted on it. Nobody read it. Oklahoma City. It gave government an opportunity, whether they participated or just knew it was going to happen, to declare right-wing extremism. Didn't even have to be foreign. Boston. They knew about these kids. They had gotten warnings, repeated warnings. They knew about the Tsarnaev brothers. They were told repeatedly by foreign governments, these two are dangerous, and this one's been over here training. They knew they were living here illegally. They knew the one's visa had expired. They'd gotten, there were flags on the play everywhere. But they didn't bother to try to stop them. Why not? Because it was a convenience to allow the government to use that incident as a springboard or a launch pad for a number of things, not the least of which was a very, very valid and legitimate test of how will Americans respond to martial law. Now that people have had a chance, by the way, to sit down and take a deep breath, the folks in Boston are pretty unhappy about what happened up there. The door-to-door searching, the violations of the Fourth Amendment, police just kicking in your door, and it wasn't optional. They just came in and held you and your family at gunpoint until they determined that you were you and your family, and then shooed you outside while they went and ransacked through your house. You see, the problem here is we have the old Hegelian dialectic that says, create a problem, then when the populace screams for resolution, solution, prevention, provide the solution. But that always comes with a degeneration and a theft and a loss of your rights. A derogation. Always. And like the gun thing, where, there's 18,000 there's 18,000 deaths a year from guns in the United States. Now, for all the talk we hear about guns, you'd think that the number was closer to a couple of 100,000. The real truth is, in this case, Fast and Furious is a perfect example. We caught them at it. They were sneaking the guns over the border, allowing it to occur, and participating in it actively. The real goal of all of Fast and Furious was not to sell guns to the cartel members. It was to sell guns to the cartel members so that when they used them for nefarious purposes, which they were, of course, bound to do, government could say, aha, see, you need us, and justify not only their existence, but their then opportunity to expand their own authority. Folks, this is a building block. You can follow the path. You don't have to be, sitting here and coming up with logic that takes a cray computer to put together. The NSA scandal is a direct result of this issue. Allow these incidents to occur. Some you play in, some you don't. We'll never really know. But even if they don't play, if they just let it happen, willingly, willfully, knowing that it's going to happen, but using it as a launch pad, so it's not a false flag per se, but with a position and a situation already in hand. Another one is the NDAA. Another one is the NSA scandal. Well, because of terror, we've got to monitor everything that you do, down to the way you clean your butt. Really? Come on, folks. For the total number of deaths that are attributable to extremism in the United States of America, is the necessity of building a dossier on every American really justified? Think about it. Isn't this a little bit like, using a tractor trailer to kill a gnat? Isn't it? I'm telling you that our borders are porous for a reason. They want these borders open. They want them to be loosely held, loosely kept, and they're lying to us about how many people are actually coming across. That evidence is everywhere, and it's proof. It's empirical, folks. It's been printed, documented repeatedly. Over and over and over and over and over, the lies of the DHS, Janet Napolitano, and the Border Patrol and ICE have been exposed by ICE and the Border Patrol agents themselves. We're not talking here about, some conspiracy theory. We're talking here about easily uncovered fact, if you're just willing to look. And when we know they're here, we don't chase them down. In fact, we offer them more than we offer our own people. There's something about that is fundamentally wrong. In other words, they know that they're dangling the golden fleece in front of illegals by doing this. it's enticing the illegals to come across. It serves a couple of purposes, not the least of which is, at some point in time, the ticks will outweigh the dog, politically speaking, in terms of votes. But also, in addition to that, it gives plausible cover for those who they actually truly want to come across the border, who will achieve and help them achieve their goals. Their goals are to have a certain number of controlled and limited attacks so that they have a justification for their existence. And I believe that wholeheartedly. You can say I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. You can say that that's a conspiracy theory. But we have a lot of evidence that points to exactly that. And even a cop will tell you, where the evidence points, that's usually where the criminal is. When a husband or a wife is killed, the number one suspect is always the spouse. Why is that? Because statistically, 80% of the time, it's the spouse. And all the evidence points there. If you rob a car and you leave your fingerprints all over it, why wouldn't you believe the evidence when somebody says it's him? These guys leave evidence everywhere. Because operations like this are huge in their scope. And people have to know what's happening. And not everybody keeps their mouth shut, frankly. And so what you have is a scenario where slowly but surely, you can't cover everything up. I mean, no matter how hard you try, all criminals make mistakes, including criminals in government. They leave traces of their activity behind. And I don't think we have to be overly imaginative to believe that 9/11, Oklahoma City, Fast and Furious, where all the evidence is pointing towards the culprit. I mean, we've got fingerprints, we've got, partial admissions, we've got stories that don't jive, we've got them in the right neighborhood at the right time, and there's even a motive. And still you want to believe they're not guilty. I don't know, America. I don't know. The border is open for a reason. And the best explanation and plausible argument I can give you for it, I just gave you. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to touch on our last segment this morning, and that is the NSA's ability now to basically foil all safeguards on the web. Everything is wide open to them. Health records, financial transactions, they've broken all encryption, and they do it by trickery, skullduggery, flat-out deceit, coercion. It's ugly. This is the newest Snowden revelation. We'll be right back.